So they only have 31.2 million barrels left, and do the subtraction of 750,000 barrels per day. And then if we get into the depths of winter and the coal's not there, once we use all this up, then he is predicting, I mean, explosive, unbelievable, massive, incredible. You'll stop driving your car. Gasoline price increases right along with diesel, of course, and how this will drive up food prices, not only for the delivery of it, but the farmers themselves using diesel in the tractors and combines, et cetera, to get the fields planted, tilled, and then harvested.
Hemp Lucid has been a leader in the hemp industry space for nearly 5 years. And Hemp Lucid has been a supporter of the sun community for over 8 years now. Grand Solar Minimum. Hemp Lucid credits part of their awakening and a motivation for starting their company. The cycles of reset through history based on solar activity. I've gotten to know the founders of Hemp Lucid over the years. They even visited me out here on my farm. I'm impressed with the vision for the company. They have a roadmap and a definite plan moving forward. And as we descend deeper into this Grand Solar Minimum, it's going to be vital for people to start taking holistic products that will help support a healthy body and mind through this transition. Hemp Lucid sells USDA organic products available in tinctures, topicals, edibles, capsules. They also offer pet products for your furry friends. And Hemp Lucid is offering the Adapt 2030 community up to 60% off products for Black Friday starting November 14th through the 30th. So visit hemplucid.com, and if you're not sure where to start, try their product finder quiz for helpful recommendations based on your needs and the amount that works for you. hemplucid.com.
Another edition of Trad Cat Night, special guest, exclusive podcast right here on the tradcatnight.org website. In the studio, David DuByne from Adapt 2030. And we're going to be jumping through all the latest news and perspectives and analysis and commentaries on, the economics, geopolitics of things, obviously earth changes. Having said that, folks, get on over to Adapt 2030. David DuByne joining us. A lot happening there on that level. Now, how about this one? Because I don't think we've ever talked about this topic in times past. The connection between these ominous lights that we're seeing in the sky shortly before earthquakes. What's the connection? What's the explanation from your perspective, David?
Electrical discharging subsurface crust running through the mineral content that had some sort of discharge coming up that would speed up the electrical frequency in the storm front or whatnot to illuminate the clouds to give them a higher resonance field, and that's why they get the rainbow glow.
There you go. Wow. Okay. Yeah. How about getting right down to the nitty gritty of it all? Yeah. No, very interesting. And we always see some, they're phenomenal pictures of that happening in the sky. Sometimes you'll see them even when earthquakes don't happen.
Well, let Eric, hold on a second. The reason I knew that and knew the answer to that is because this is my new field of study that I'm really focusing on is the global electric circuit. Now, what that means for you and I is up at the ionosphere, which is 100 miles above us, is that line of discharge between atmosphere and crust. And above that, it goes out into space. And that thing has an electric current running through it. There's an inbound charge, which comes in through the sun, aurora, and different types of things. Now, the sun has been highly charged for 400 years, and so is our planet. So the sun's state and the planetary state of our bodies on this Earth here have found some equilibrium after 400 years of extremely high charge. Well, that's stepping down real fast, but our Earth's crust is still holding a lot of resonant electrical energies. They need a discharge. So I'm finding that these discharge points where they're seeing elves and sprites above it, if you look below on the ground, they're getting the crop losses are directly under these electrical events, which comes back to the same thing. It seems that the electrical outbound flow is affecting regional weather patterns in these areas. The crops are being lost, but every time we get some intense storm action, there always seem to be sprites, blue jets, and elves above these same crop grow zones, which means that the electric current's coming out and it's now visible enough where you can see it with your eyes. And they're following magnetic field lines out on the ribbon lines, mid-latitudes versus what you would see in the higher polar regions. So The circuitry is what I'm following now on the discharge patterns to affect crops based on this electrical resonance that needs to equalize state. And then you'll see the inbound charges coming in. They're following field lines, magnetic field lines. But even the smallest perturbations now are causing gigantic filaments that you can see where the different current flows are wrapping around the magnetic field line. And these are getting so gigantic that they're really hundreds of miles long now that you can see a rainbow of filaments coming down. And generally they glow in different colors. And that's where I'm sitting. And that's the whole new field of study I'm looking at is the discharge patterns affecting the crop grow zones, where these electrical activity points are and what regions are growing what crops and to expect what kind of losses. And can you switch crops and get the same nutrition if you're going to feed cattle, for example? So if I'm going to shift from corn and you still have to have an input into the dairy industry, then what kind of new crops would have the same nutritional value that can you switch species into a certain animal husbandry field, whether it be chicken scratch, pork, poultry, whatever it might be, turkey, cattle, dairy cow, whatever, beef cattle. I mean, if you're going to be putting feed into that versus silage, and again, the silage too, I mean, is it going to grow in a different region? Is it nutritionally dense enough? Is it nutritionally the same? Is it deficient in something? So knowing where these electrical discharge patterns are, what crops are going to be disrupted, what might be a substitution crop, and then looking at the nutritional value to see if you can still plug it in to the agribiz for what we get on our plates and what you find in the supermarkets. I understand that these weather patterns like these 5 arc storms lining up that hit California, record snows, all-time record rains, and then Himachal Pradesh and Kashmir, huge record snows ripped down all the apples off the trees. Kashmir lost most of their apple crop. And you're just starting to see it. It's 25 degrees below 0 Celsius in Scandinavian countries. And you're just starting to see an enormous amount of things adding up. That's like having a sick body. That's the cough. So I'm looking down to see, okay, what's triggering that cough? What's triggering the fever? And it's electrical, and it can be mapped out on discharge points, and you can map the crop losses. Oh, and by the way, I'm on a Russian news feed. Oh, bad. I listen to the Russians. But they dropped their forecast down. I'll give you some exact numbers here if I can pull it up. So the Russian Agricultural Division came out and has dropped their forecast for Russian wheat production from, let me see here, 27.5 million tons down to 123 million tons. So it's 127.4 million tons was the projection. And that was lowered from the 135 they started with first. Now they're down to 123. And personally, I believe that's going to go lower before it's finished, down to around 119 or 118. So wait a second. Why did I go 135, 137, drop into 118? That's Russia. They're supposed to have the best ag, the best. They're going to save the world by all this extra agriculture they had to give to us. And nope. And then you look at Europe. Why are they stopping their exports? Why is Europe down like 20% on exports this year if they had such a bumper crop? They're not exporting. And there's all these little things adding up. But if you look at the electrical discharge points happening through Russia, there's 3 of them, and they're in the Volga region, one of them, and that's where the oats and, the barley's coming from. And, there's wheat growing regions where there's electrical discharge patterns showing.
Now, before it became cool to talk about, supply chain disruptions and shortages really all across the board, whether it be food, water, just, medical or whatever, we've done podcasts long before this indicating this was right around the corner, indicating food prices would go up. And I saw a few more articles this week that Michael Snyder from the Economic Collapse blog came on my show, and we were discussing these in part. Some of the top CEOs of supermarkets indicating, by December, expect 15, 20% high more prices. And then this thing called shrinkflation, where you're paying the same price, but they're actually giving you less of the product. So it's kind of a sneaky way of getting it out to the public with hopefully people not noticing it. And of course, people who are really kind of zoned in and they understand the times that we're living in are paying attention. But it's just sort of your updated opinion for this winter. We're moving from fall into winter here in the not so distant future. I mean, how bad will it get? I had one of my guests. I'm not sure if you've ever seen Autumn's Backyard, but it's a up and coming YouTube channel. She's a prepper. But she was telling me when we had her on this last month that a close friend of hers who was on, let's just say sort of the government side of things, the federal government side of things, who didn't want to take the jab and they left very disgruntled, said, be prepared for this winter. Food will be scarce, is how she put it on the program. Your thoughts, David, and what will the grocery stores look like even over the next month or two?
More expensive. And then, to add on to that, the CEO of Blackstone,
yes,
not BlackRock. No, they're a little different, but they're operating parallel with each other. I mean, the name may be different, but the parallels are so stark in what the investments are and how they control so many industries and the amount of money coming in here, et cetera. So CEO of Blackstone warning of power shortages and food shortages coming in. So the whole thing is food is related to energy, and energy is the basis of a society that gives us extra food, so we have extra calories in the body to continue to innovate. Once we drop below a certain level, not only in the amount of people that are out there to run the society, and I don't know how dangerously close we are to not having enough people in the workforce to maintain even the most basic functionality in a society that we would expect. That's one thing to think about. But the energy here, since we've pretty much gone off the coal and Biden shut everything down, there's no real source of coal. There's an enormous amount on the ground, don't get me wrong. But the use of it's been curtailed so heavily that there's a coal shortage in America. And then what this CEO is talking about here is they're starting to burn oil in lieu of coal. And there's only 31 million barrels left in the WTI storage areas there. And since they're not using coal, they're burning oil to produce the electricity. And once that exceeds what they have in the stocks there, well, we're going to come into some massive fuel price increases. So he's saying about it's going to be 750,000 barrel per day drawdown during winter into this strategic reserve of Cushing oil storage. That's for the WTI is held Cushing. That's a terminus point, and then they send it elsewhere in the pipelines, which used to go to a lot of refineries, which are suddenly closed now. So they only have 31.2 million barrels left, and do the subtraction of 750,000 barrels per day. And then if we get into the depths of winter and the coal's not there, once we use all this up, then he is predicting, explosive, unbelievable, massive, incredible. You'll stop driving your car. Gasoline price increases right along with diesel, of course, which leads into its own feedback loop of how are you going to be able to even access the fuels? And if you can, the expense associated with it, and how this will drive up food prices, not only for the delivery of it, but the farmers themselves using diesel in the tractors and combines, et cetera, to get the fields planted, tilled, and then harvested, and then brought to market. We're talking about similar things in different retrospect of how cold is the winter going to be? Absolutely smashingly brutal, unbelievable cold this winter in many, many places. It's not going to be a uniform cooling across the entire United States, cold the whole time. But when the cold fronts come, it's going to be like Texas last year when they lost power. They're going to have to reroute so much power because of the extreme cold that's going to be hitting a lot of places in the southern United States. So I was told by another person here, Tennessee's on nuclear and hydropower, that we have ample electricity around here. This person was like, if anywhere north in Virginia, like Washington, D.C., or Richmond or some other places in the capital of Virginia, or places like Atlanta go down in power, they're going to reroute all the TVA power down to these other places. And he's like, you think your little podunk town out in Tennessee is going to still remain fully lit and fully energized when places in Washington, D.C. are going down? He's like, you're deluding yourself. You might have the power production, but it's going to be rerouted and you'll be on rolling blackouts while they try to supply Washington, D.C. Gotcha. This is where it sits. Even if you're not relying on coal, it's going to be the demand to try to keep the bigger places lit up, because a lot of this continuous power, whether it be West Coast using a lot of hydro, nuclear or others, this power is going to be rediverted. The same thing this other CEO is talking about here, blackouts. So it doesn't matter how blackouts are going to occur, how food prices are going to increase. It's all on the table. Now, by the end of the year here in the next 2 months, I don't see it occurring that fast. I do see massive prices in food inflation. But the blackouts, I don't believe would occur until January, February. And once that starts, like I'm already seeing, here's some signs right here out of Ace Hardware. We are temporarily out of propane. Okay, Ace Hardware, like you shouldn't be out of propane. They always have those little, 20 pound tanks you can just rip out of the front there. They're out of all those. No tanks, no propane. So, all right, we're already starting to see the beginnings of it here. But if gas goes to $8 or $12 a gallon, your food doubles in price, triples in price. Your homes don't have heat. People are freezing it in their homes. They're going to have to come around with teams of people in the spring after the thaw out and clean all the bodies out of the homes so they don't cause more disease. And then we're going to get this magnetic field, and we're going to start to get a huge amount of crustal rifts and splits, which is going to affect infrastructure like the roads, the railroads, the fiber optic cables, the pipelines themselves, whether it be water, oil, natural gas, or something under the ground. The locks would be affected. The bridges will be affected. All these things are happening. And it's kind of like dovetailing right into this same timeline that me and a couple others have for the second magnetic field forming. So everything you're looking at out there in terms of timelines of blackouts, brownouts, food shortages, food expenditure increases are marching lockstep, literally lockstep year by year, quarter by quarter, with the timelines going out in the second magnetic field intensifying and the amount of damage it'll do to above ground infrastructure. Like, it's really quirky and a little eerie. And then the cherry on top, at the same time, the amount of governmental control to keep the citizens under wraps so they don't overthrow governments is going to come to the uber pipe hitting kind here coming up to control the masses before they riot. And that's the biggest thing I look at is, what's the government going to do to respond to this? They're going to let you starve. They're going to let you freeze. But the minute you try to make change, you're going to be in the front lines with live rounds. That's where it's going, 2022 and 3.
Wow. What a way to end the show with David DuByne from Adapt 2030. Before we let you go, David, let's do a little shameless self-promotion time. Again, we probably won't have David back on until the first few weeks of December. So looking forward to that. And what can we help you promote?
Telegram. I got a new Telegram channel open. So you can follow me right over on Telegram. I have about 700 and some people on the channel right now. I want to grow that specifically. Now, you're looking for the one with the bullhorn on it, because I have a group channel which has a couple people. When I was setting this thing up, I kind of set 2 channels up. One was more of a public channel. The other one is the newsfeed. That's the bullhorn and the megaphone that you're looking for on the Adapt 2030 Telegram channel. Go over there and join me. And the last one I just put up a few minutes ago was about the sinkholes. So you can follow that right down yourself and find out where these sinkholes are out of the South China Morning Post. And I did some stuff on the intensifying La Nina, which is going to bring in all these extreme weather patterns and extreme cold events for the winter. 25 degrees Celsius below zero in Scandinavia in the middle October. Those are midwinter temperatures. So something broke off and a polar vortex got snapped and had its own cold blob rolling down south. So anyway, that's what I want to promote is get on Telegram if you can, the Adapt 2030 channel.
All right, good stuff. David DuByne, we close out today, folks.